Greetings bandits, welcome to my channel and to this video. Today we're out here in the garage and I've got an older vehicle. I've got two vehicles actually with the same problem. The problem is that the dashboard lights do not give you specific PSI readings on individual tires. Yes, if you have tire pressure that goes low, you've got a flat tire, it'll notify you, but it won't exactly tell you which specific tire is the culprit, and it certainly doesn't tell you what your PSI for each tire is. And so you have to manually go out and check that, and that's fine. Something is better than nothing. But I purchased this little third-party system here, this little device, and I'm just curious, is it worth it or not? It didn't break the bank, and it basically comes with these 4 sensors. You actually screw them onto your stems like that, and it sends a signal to your dashboard and continuously monitors the PSI in each individual tire as you are driving. So this is a cool idea. The question is, does it work? Is it accurate? And what about theft? All of these important things. So we're going to be exploring all of that in this video, and hopefully this can help you out. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so let's get started. Here's the problem we're trying to solve. We've got the dashboard that just shows the low tire indicator instead of having to manually check it. Is there something that works better? Here is the product that I ended up going with. Here it is out of the box. You can check the link for the description below for this and other recommended products, as I always like to do, making sure you've got easy access to high quality products that meet my full recommendations. So let's get this unboxed here. We've got the actual dashboard monitor, and I'll explain. You'll get a better look at all these parts here, but it's good always, I think, to see it being unboxed so you get an idea of what packaging and shipping is like, because sometimes you get a pretty crappy product that's shipped in a crappy way. These are the transmitters that screw on your tire valve stems, and there's 4 of them, and they're pretty high quality plastic, I think, and they're not heavy at all, because you don't want to mess around with like tire imbalance or anything like that, but they seem like they're not cheap. There's something, semi-hefty to them, which is, I think, good. In other words, I kind of like, do a visual inspection and weigh it with my hand to see if it feels cheap or not. This is pretty lightweight. This is solar paneled. There's no battery that adds to the weight, which is nice, and it sits atop your dashboard. We'll get a better look at that in a minute, but here are all the parts laid out for you. It's got a charging cable that it comes with. There's a black cylinder you can see there in the middle, and a little wrench as well. And the black cylinder you'll see in a second, that will be the tool that will take the transmitter apart to change the battery. But let's get this thing charged up first. Yes, it's solar, but it's best to initially charge it with regular electricity in the wall, coming out of the wall here, to make sure it's fully topped off, as opposed to letting the solar panel do that. The solar panel will, you can see the battery indicator there, will handle, it's like a trickle charger, right? So it'll keep it topped off, but it's best to juice it up fully. Here's that battery tool removal tool, and we'll get that hooked up. And then there's some nuts that are provided, and a couple of rubber gaskets for replacement, and the tool, and the 4 transmitters, obviously. All right, before we bring this out to the car to actually hook up, let's show you the anatomy of this. So this cylinder tool here that kind of pops in half right down the middle, and there's a side with some grooves on it. And then we'll take one of the transmitters here and we'll put it just like this. As you can see, you can press pause and you twist in an opposite way, one clockwise, one counterclockwise rotation, and that will essentially screw off the top part of this transmitter. And you won't have to do this unless you need to change out the battery. And here it is, just so you have an idea of what that looks like. Get a little closer view for you. So they do come equipped with a battery. That does add to the weight a little bit. Again, after thorough reviews and inspections and trying this out myself, doesn't appear to be any issues with tire imbalance, which was an important question that I had when putting something like this on the actual car. So anyway, That's how you change out the battery. It just slips off and you put a new one in. And how long the batteries last, I cannot tell you that. I think that probably depends on how much you drive and how much you use it, how much it's transmitting. It seems to be a sleep mode, which you'll maybe see a little later in the video. So that could, reduce the battery usage and prolong the life of the battery. All right, so here we are. We are fully charged up. You can see the indicator there on the dashboard monitor. And again, this thing's solar paneled, so it's really nice. You don't have to have any cords. We're gonna hold down the middle button until you hear the beep. It'll say on, and then there's a little blinking light here. All right, it's break time. Subscribe, like, and share to support this channel. Please comment as well. Join as a member for amazing perks from priority replies to DIY party invites. If you need tools and merch, shop my store or website. You can check the links in the description for my best products. All right, after we've got it unboxed and thoroughly inspected, charged up, and ready to go, we're going to bring it out here to the install site on one of the vehicles. I'm in my second vehicle here, a little Subaru, and we can just pop this thing or just place it right on the dashboard. Now, positioning is important. After some experience, which I'll mention a little later in the video, sometimes there'll be, not sometimes, on very rare occasions, like we took a road trip and there was like a signal issue. So you'd had to like relocate it and it was fine. So, depending on if you have a phone hooked up and you're using GPS, I mean, who knows what it is. But for the purposes of this video, start in the center of your console, just like that, or maybe a little bit to the left, or whatever's comfortable. There's a little sticky pad that's provided, and you just put it on there. It does not peel or stick. It's just like this really tacky rubber, and it does not slide. And obviously, if you go off-roading with it, it might jump off of there. But just driving around, we've had no problems as of the making of this video with sliding out or sliding around or anything like that. So cordless and really nice. So the next thing we're going to do is come down to the tire itself, and we'll be installing the transmitters on each individual wheel. I will unscrew the plastic stem caps just like that. And there is a locking feature on these transmitters, which I'll show you how that works. But for now, before we start, let's just get a manual reading, because we want to compare the digital transmitted reading to the manual reading there. All right, so left front is right at 30, as you saw. Next, we'll take this little nut that was provided, and this is the anti-theft nut. You cannot manually check it with those on there, unfortunately. You can, but not with this reader. You have to have like a little shallower meter if you're manually checking. But the idea is to bypass that entirely. So we're going to put the nut on first and screw it all the way down, and then we'll put on the transmitter. The transmitters are labeled, so make sure you have LF for left front, matching your left front tire. That's just to avoid confusion, obviously. And then we'll take the nut here and we'll spin it back up the stem until it meets the base of the transmitter. And then you use this little locking tool here and tighten that down. Make sure you're turning it in the correct direction. You don't want it to spin down the stem. You want it to spin back up the stem and essentially get nice and tight. And with that in place, with your hand, if you try to unlock this, just unscrew it with your hand, you will not be able to do that. So if you live in like a really urban area and you've got people walking by all the time and you think someone's going to steal them, maybe a good idea. If you're not so concerned with it, I mean, who really notices the stem caps, right? Then you might not want to go through that hassle of, for example, if you want to manually check or if you want to add a little air, you have to get out your tool, which, do you remember where you put the tool? So keep it in a safe place, right? And, you have to back out the net. So it is an extra little hassle, I think, from my experience, but it could be a good feature depending on your situation. All right, here's the back left tire, and we'll do the same thing. We'll get that nut installed. And if you're not installing the anti-theft system, you can just put the transmitter on directly onto the stem without the nut and tighten it down by hand. You don't want to over tighten, of course, but then it just unscrews freely. There is a period of time when you're screwing it on that it actually, if you don't continue to tighten it, air will escape. You can probably hear it there. So you want to make sure so it doesn't lose air, right? Screw it on fast as opposed to slow. to minimize how much air escapes. And then obviously once it's tight, no air escapes. It works just like a regular cap. All right, so let's tighten this up, and let's go up to the front of the dashboard and see. As soon as it's tightened on there and it's got a reading, it's transmitting it to there. You can see the front, the numbers there, 29 and 30, which line up with my manual numbers, which is good. Next, let's get this installed on the front right and the back right. There's the front right installed, just like we did. And let's check the dashboard reading. It does go into sleep mode, you can see. And you can press a button or just get near it and it turns on. So we'll check that reading in a second. Let's go back to the wheel. It might take 30 seconds or so to sync up. There we go, 30. So they're coming in, the readings one by one, that's good. And the last tire here, also reading about 30 manually. And let's check to see if that's transmitted. We're coming in at 29. So you see the big PSI numbers there. There's also temperature for each one. Not exactly perfect, same ambient temperature outside, but there's slightly different readings on each wheel. Right now they're all reading the same 61 degrees Fahrenheit. But from my experience, there is a little variation that happens. Not a big deal. I just wouldn't forecast the weather based on that. Next, we're going to do a live test. I'm actually going to unscrew the transmitter just a little bit until some air releases. There we go. You can hear it hissing out. And then we're going to come look at the dashboard monitor to see how quickly, imagining this represents like a slow leak or something, whether it's a puncture in your tire or maybe some other issue. And we'll just kind of wait and see the top. We're looking at the top left number. It says 29. And we'll see if that goes down, if that's able to accurately reflect that air escaping. And yes, it does. There it is, 28. I'm going to fast forward this a little bit for you. Again, this represents a slow leak. There it goes down to 27. The air is still coming out of the tires, the valve. And there it is, 26, and it starts to beep. So that's what it sounds like if you've got low tire pressure. And it tells you exactly which tire is the culprit, which is huge, really nice. Okay, so we're going to take the valve or the transmitter all the way off the stem, and we'll take off the nut as well. Now, when the transmitter is disconnected completely from your tire stem, it will send a 0 signal and beep for you so that you know that there is an issue. So we'll get that, my compressor hooked up, and we'll get the air back in the tire to where it was before. All right, I'll fast forward it just a little bit. And we're at 30 again, and that'll do just fine. You want to check the front, the passenger or the driver's side door for your recommended PSI for each tire. In this case, it's like 30 up front and 32 in the back or something like that. And it happens to be reading 29, which is a little bit less, one less, but that's good. Here's a look at night, what it looks like. It's got an LED backlight, so you can obviously read it during night hours. And you're going to want to take all these numbers with a grain of salt. They could vary, versus manually checking them by 1 or so. All right, here we are the next morning. Let's see how things held up overnight. It's a little cooler in the morning. You can see the temperatures dropped a little bit, and the PSI as a result dropped a little bit, which is completely normal. So that's nice. That tells me there's a good, strong, consistent connection transmitting happening. Next, let's get this out on the road to test it out, see if I notice anything or have any reflections. For you, there it is, that tacky surface. Again, if you're driving, turning regularly, this thing's going to do just fine. There's no adhesive, which is nice. It doesn't scuff up your dashboard. You don't have to worry about peeling it off or anything like that. It easily relocates on your dashboard. Now, notice the PSI as I'm out here driving it is increasing, which is also normal. And what you obviously want to see as you use the tire as it increases in temperature, that PSI will increase, and that's reflected on the dashboard. Now let's bring it out on a road trip on the highway. We've got no tire balance issues. I researched that. That was a really big concern of mine. There is a little disconnect happening on 2 of the back tires, but again, once you relocate the monitor here to the left side, And it seemed to happen at like really high speeds. We had our phone on with GPS and whatnot. So that was one thing that I was kind of curious about, but that did not affect the performance. Again, I had to relocate the monitor to a different area on the dashboard, and then it synced up again. Next, we're going to test how far away this thing can be. So we'll just grab this whole thing off and start walking until it starts beeping. All right, we're gonna walk all the way into the backyard. Now I have not had to charge this either. Look at the battery. It says it's bright. I'm all the way in the backyard. Car's in front of the house. No disruptions. Do they stick out a little bit? Not really. All right, so long story short, this seems like a really awesome product. It gives me the exact measurements that I want. It's got the quality, it's got auto charger, solar charging, and we're gonna keep this and call this a win. Thanks for being with me. Hopefully this has helped you out. Stay sneaky.